This is a pre-trial. This is pre-trial jurisdictional issues of the Natural and Common Law Tribunal for Public Health and Justice on Sunday, September 28th, on the Bondicide et al. Trial. And we're hearing on jurisdictional issues, and we're going to hear from expert Simone. Over to you, expert Simone.
Yes, Ananda is just opening the act that you sent out to us. But I was actually, when I read through the act, the Family Sovereignty Act and the Universal Family Act, what was the Family Sovereignty? Yes. I was reading it in such a way, also in terms of B a subpoint indigenous sovereignty, as well as sovereign interpretation, that if you want, when as a parent, go and not register your child with a birth certificate, or do not want any social entitlements, that this would automatically fall under this sovereignty, because it is such a wide umbrella that you can easily put a definition underneath that, a subsidization underneath that, a subsidizing. I don't know if you use that term in the English language. It's from the German legal language. So we can make a definition for it underneath, or we can give it as an example, so that it is in there. But at the end of the day, I think the act itself, if it's written like currently so wide, it will automatically fall underneath that. We can, of course, also shape it a little bit more, that it's a little bit more detailed, so also the lawyers and the judges will understand that. But everybody in the legal system who is working in the legal system knows those definitions. You can put a lot underneath. It's just a matter then of the person who is receiving it, meaning the judge or a different lawyer, if they acknowledge that it would be covered by such a high or a big umbrella, if that big umbrella is covering also the birth certificate and the social entitlement. I personally say, okay, I mean, if you would like to add a sentence to it for clarification purposes on those two terms, I wouldn't say why not. I just would be careful with then going too much into details, because the more you go into details, the more you exclude on the other side. So the more you go and mentioning terms and names and things and definitions,
you go into the Empire script.
You go into the Empire script, and the more will be then, on the other hand, they could argue against it and say, basically, but this is not defined, hence it's not falling underneath this so-called act or this so-called law, hence it's not applicable here. So we have to be really careful in how we would formulate that, so that it is still open and not and wide. That would be my input to that. Excellent
additions. Okay, we're still going to stay with the. I realize that there are other judges' hands who are up, and we'll get to you, but we're going initially with the presenting judges, who are Judge Marianne, Judge Ananda, and expert Simone. And the issue is, should this action include, this trial include the issue of the birth certificate?
Yeah.
And the issue of social entitlements.
Yeah.
And we're going to, I don't know whether to go to Judge Marianne or to Judge Ananda next. So
I have a feeling we're going to,
and then over to Judge Ananda.
I have a feeling that Ananda and Simone and I would have a bit, oh, I'm sorry. Is it turned on? Okay. I have can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I have I think we will talk about it because it bears relevance on the financial incentive. But as Simone was describing, the crime is sufficiently higher in level. Like it's a bondicide. We're talking about like a culling that's going on, and using the birth certificates is one of the financial incentives. What she raises is important, is that if we get too specific and caught up in identifying the crime as having to be hooked to a birth certificate, then the problem is that they can take out our judgment really quickly. If we leave it more as an open, as she and Amanda are suggesting, which is we think this is how it's being put together, we have evidence, but it doesn't matter whether we prove that point or not, the certificate relevance. You're going to find one mom who didn't even register her baby who was taken. The point is the crime as we recognize it by Nuremberg and by the existing international law. Does that, you guys agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
So I think that the most
however, it should be understood that bondicide is a genocidal crime that includes the practice of birth certificate, because evidence will be presented at the trial of the birth certificate racket. You see, people that the world is brainwashed and doesn't know that there's a racket behind the birth certificate, and therefore evidence should be presented of the birth certificate racket, which makes it a genocide. See, we're against the genocide, against the rackets.
Yeah. Exactly. My concern is that we get this family sovereignty law passed and through, that we vote on it, and that bondicide is defined as a crime, so that future legislation can be done on it. I know very few people who've actually been able to use the birth certificate issue against the system. It's more of neutralizing it. I've personally also talked against using UCCs and liens, because liens is directly attacking the empire. And as we see with Trump, he has two games. He has one game, he speaks to the UN, good stuff, but then he goes straight to Palantir, who is practically controlling the world now. The whole European drone wall from von der Leyen, with billions of euros, is Palantir run. So that you've got Macron saying, we hate these drones, we must bring these drones down, let's use Palantir, and France is using Palantir 100%, and Trump has just given full surveillance power to for the US people to Palantir. But this is another issue we're going to deal with later. So I do not believe in the white hats, except that the Freemason 33rd degree is a white hat. That is a term they're in, and the councils of princes are 33 of the 33 degree lodges that play the white side. And I have not seen in the years that have happened that their so-called secret tribunals have done anything that is in advance for the sovereignty of humanity. This Sovereignty Act is so important, so beautiful in this deep darkness, that it's pertinent to the root core of existence that we bring this through as clear as possible.
Okay, so to ask you, perhaps I'm being simple-minded, but could you present them just perhaps in this trial a segment of evidence? Oh, and by the way, here is an example of how here is an example of the racket behind the birth certificate, so people wake up. So
yeah, we have it. We have that.
Can we do that? would the judges be in favor of that? I mean, we have to show the racket that's going on in the quote child protection field, which includes the birth certificate racket. Isn't that the point of this of this trial?
Yeah, can I say
Do you agree with that?
I agree with what you're saying because I have a problem, and I will say this as a judge because I won't partake. Actually, if this is going to go this direction, I'm not going to partake. My personal judgment on this is one. When we look at the birth certificate and the racketeering of the birth certificate to make money and fraud the system on a criminal action under genocide, under international criminal law, that's where I would stay in the game. If there's no identification of how the law's been broken and how the law's been violated at the International Criminal Court level, okay, on the racketeering of children trafficking, on the racketeering of the birth certificate, I don't really buy the birth certificate. I don't, because let's face it, if I'm going into a court of law, into a trial hearing, and I'm saying, okay, this group of people in the world have used birth certificates to actually traffic children for the sale of funds, to profit from those sale of funds in a courtroom, I have to prove that there's been a law broken. I can't just go in and say a statement without a law backing up. So that's how I'm feeling right now. I believe it should stick with fact of law on the premise of what we come in with child trafficking, because child trafficking under the laws that protect children at the sovereign level of a state, at the international level of the criminal courts, that's where it should fall under. Now, if we go the other way and start bringing in the birth certificate racketeering, the fraud that we got proof that there's racketeering of how much money, where's this money coming from? How's it being used? Who are the parties responsible? You have to have such good detail of fact. They could throw it out of court. I agree with what Simone is saying. It could be thrown out so easily. So I think we need to really stick with fact and law. We could bring that in, but I personally, when I look at how we're going into this, I believe the genocide and how we're presenting it under children trafficking that is happening needs to be put under that sovereign law that we're proposing.
So Judge Rita, I have to interrupt because there is fact and law from Govinda Tidbal. It's already there now.
Yeah, so where's the fact and law? Where do we see this?
I'm going to have to send material out so you can see it, understand it. It's already there. I like what Judge Alfred is doing, framing this. And what I think is very important, I want to just go back to a more global perspective coming in. We are a court of common law and natural law. And what happens, one of the reasons why so many people get entrapped in all these systems is because we don't deal in the lawful, we deal in the legal. And once you hit the legal, then you're under your capitalized name, which means you're a dead entity before courts. And I've been to court now in Ontario and Quebec 23 times in 2 years. I've sat all the way as a Mackenzie friend all the way to the Federal Court of Canada. And I can tell you right now, there are people, just a very minority, who are at the point where they're having their court numbers audited and they're finding out how many dollars are going off their trusts. In one case in Ottawa, there's an individual who's got the TD at a point where it's at the $500 million mark. He's already paid taxes to CRA for 100 and something million. And believe it or not, the enforcement arm is the Department of Treasury that will be going after the TD Bank for tax fraud. This is very real stuff. So Govinda Tidbal, that's very real. What I want to come back to is our roots. We are common law and natural law. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole legally. I want to go down the rabbit hole lawfully. And where we get entrapped is within statute, because if you're dealing from common law and trust matters, you cannot deal with your capitalized name. And so that's Judge Alford, do you know where I'm coming from with saying we are common law, we're natural law, we deal lawfully, not legally. We don't deal, and so what entraps everyone in courts now, it's statute law. It's like COVID. We have all these laws that were ignored, and everything about COVID went into statute law to imprison, so people had no leeway to fight tickets or masking issues or anything else.
Mhm.
That is where I don't want to go down. So whatever we have here, here on this beautiful rights draft, I want to keep it at a level where they can't take us down into statute rabbit holes. And therefore, my terminology is lawful, not legal, and common law and natural law. So I rest. I yield.
I'm
Okay.
going to say, Howard, you've got a very good point. It is tied into the birth certificate. With the greatest respect, Rita, this whole point of this trial is how one of the ways in which this is a maneuvering tactic to create this these detachments of children and parents, and to fall into the trap. It is to fall into a trap to think that we're talking about other human trafficking, of child trafficking. It's a very bad thing. But the point is, it's hidden in plain sight. It is legalized, glamorized, normalized, and it will run through all the social securities with proof. And if that's something that is not what you're able to do, this is what we're doing here. This is what we're doing. We're showing how that is the child trafficking.
So the Social Security is a child trafficking.
It
But-
is a mechanism. It is
Yeah.
a mechanism for human trafficking to take children at a young age, to take human beings at a young age.
So
And
you-
we will actually show how the cases are bonded with what you would like to have. We will have a report from Bloomberg. We will show affidavits that prove that the cases in family court are bonded with securities, municipal securities. We'll see admissions from the child protection agencies themselves, and you will actually see how it feeds into the system. When Ananda and Simone present extensively on Barnevarnet, you're going to see the most advanced model in which this thing is plugged all right into the Bilderberg Group and the WEF. This is your human trafficking, all of the family court. Sorry.
Thank you. So the children trafficking that we see at an international level for sex trafficking could fall under the same thing. I know what you're saying. One is legalized under a system that is legalized, that's corrupt. From what I'm understanding, it's a legalized corrupt system. It's a racketeering, no different than other racketeering schemes that we have that are illegal under our corrupt systems of justice. But there's another system that is recognized as illegal in this world, that actually you do have attorneys in Texas fighting. You have governors fighting for children that are bought over the border. These children are trafficked. Their names are changed. Their names are gone. They're sold for a sex trade. They come from countries like Mexico and the Philippines, number 2 countries in the world that traffic kids to America. And these kids are sold to pedophiles in America. Okay, so this is a big problem. This is an illegal problem. So now this system of children trafficking for illicit sex to adults is a big problem. It's recognized under the ICC. It is recognized. So I get what you're saying. We got 2 systems. We got one that is going to fall under the Sovereign Parental Act that Alfred's put into place as a law that will cover children being trafficked in all forms, whether it's illegal, going right through the system of trafficking and kidnapping from parents, taking those rights away from parents that sell their kids, being told their kids will be returned, or being told their kids are only going away for a day and those kids no longer are seen by parents because now they're gone for life. So we got 2 systems. All I'm saying is, how do we encompass under a Sovereign Parental Act of law a system that's a legitimate system and a system that is illegitimate, but yet they've legalized it under the Family Act, under the court system, whether it's at the provincial level and at the state level or at the national or at the international level. I had a parent tell me, and this just happened to me last week. I was quite surprised, actually. I don't know why she came into my life, but she did for some reason. I went to buy a cosmetic I needed some cream at a store. I went to the store. The cosmetician helped me. She's from the Netherlands. She immigrated to Canada with her son at the age of 10. So we started talking, and she says, I don't understand why I get something from you. I get this energy, but what do you do? And I said, well, I work in this area of my employment. And we started talking about the Netherlands. I said, why did you move to Canada from the Netherlands with your son? I said, they have an amazing educational system in the Netherlands. They've got a great system of governance for children. Why did you come to Canada? She goes, well, I came here because I thought I'd have better opportunity for my son. And that's why I came to Canada. Then she told me what happened to her son in grade 7. I was shocked, but I wasn't shocked when I heard this. In BC schools, this is under a BC EBI government that had instituted a law that says parents have no right to defend children against pornography shown to kids in school. Her son was forced with another classroom of 10-year-old children to watch two men having sex to promote homosexual activities in our community. That is a violation. But listen me out. That's a violation under the Human Rights Act of BC and of internationally, nationally, and at the provincial level. The school system under the BC Department of Education and Ministry, they're the governance body that governs the safety of children in our school system in BC. They violated that because they now show children same-sex activity. It's part of their program of education. Her son was forced to sit there with other kids. Him and his friends turned their face. It was traumatizing for these kids to see two men having sex. And this is education in our BC school system, in public school system.
Judge Rita.
Yeah.
Obviously, the BC schools and the government of BC are defendants.
I know they
Their
are.
action. They are defendants, and they will be served.
Will be, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
they
that's
are
the thing.
the defense. Yes, Judge Simone.
I just wanted to quickly add to Rita, Judge Rita. I know it's really outrageous as we have lived for 5 years now in BC, and I was part of a homeschooling co-op and was a teacher during the COVID times with a small pot of kids. I'm very well aware of what is at the moment or has been implemented into the BC curriculum, and it is actually starting as early as the first grade. They are actually having a special section of, I don't remember right now how they are calling it, but this has to be, it's kind of like sexual education, and it starts already in first grade. And they start already with also same-sex education and things like that with gnomes and whatever have you. And suddenly in fairy tales, they are not a prince and a princess anymore. There are two princesses suddenly, or two princes. So this is already implemented very deeply into the BC curriculum for the last, I would say, 4 years or something. I would have said to this mother, normally the school needs to write a letter or needs to make write a letter to the parents, or has to schedule, a whole list of activities, and something like that needs to be also in that list, at least mentioned, so that parents can have the choice of not having their kid go to school on that day. So this is the only way. I know I have a friend, she has now 2 kids in high school, and she is so very well aware of what is being taught and what is going on every day in school, so that she can act immediately on exactly that and pull her kid out and say, you're not going to school today. You're going to school tomorrow again, but not today. Today is you staying at home, you're sick or you're whatever, but this is it. So it's going on everywhere, and it's starting as early as first grade.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
It will also fall under the parental responsibilities from the Act, that Judge Alfred has sent us, where they have to, where the parents have to be aware of certain things, and also in schooling, in all different terms, in health, well-being of the child. The schooling falls underneath those parental responsibilities in a sovereign family. You just have to be informed. We saw it with our own daughter as well. It's sometimes a lot. It's a lot, especially if you are if you're a single parent and juggle with all kinds of other things. But you really have to be very adamant on those things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And one thing she did mention, I'll just real quickly, she just said one thing. Under the PR residency status, the thing is, many of these people are immigrants, and not just immigrants, even people born here have like citizenship, as I do. They do use their permanent residency status before they could get that to not speak up. And she said one thing to me. She says, Rita, I couldn't defend my son, because if I did write a letter to the school, they actually would have not given me my citizenship so I could work and stay employed, so I could sustain my son and support him as a single mom. So they already have you. And now you have more power to voice if you are a citizen, like myself. If I were to go voice this and I went to, nothing would happen to me, because I have nothing to lose. I'm a citizen. I've been born and raised in this country. So I'm not saying no one else is, but they will use that. They use that bully, that threaten. They will use the system of immigration in this country, which is awful. They will use it to deport people that speak up against what we want and our values and our culture.
Yeah.
They use that against them. So that's all I'm saying.
This is very valuable. Like, for example, Judge Rita's comments just now, we're at the procedural stages of the trial, such that, Judge Rita, you should be preparing to give testimony in the evidentiary phases of the trial, and give that testimony so that people see why the Family Sovereignty Act is necessary. Do you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we're about to go into, we are creating a trial. So strategically, what I'd like to do now, because we're almost an hour in, is to very briefly go to the outline that was set out, the outline of the trial, so that all the judges can start thinking strategically how to use our time. What type of evidence are you going to present? Would you, as a judge, like to present? Because Judge Rita could present very, very valuable evidence in the course of the trial that would be part of the evidence backing up this trial, in addition to other witnesses that are present here and that will be brought by Judge Marianne. So, can I lower your hand, Judge?
Oh, sure. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So would it be okay for us to go briefly over the procedure of the trial, to think strategically as a group? Is that okay? Okay, let me just bring this out, and I'm just going to go to share screen, and use that as a tool. So can everyone see this this procedural issue?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that as we were discussing with expert Simone, the remedy sought, that is what we're going to see, is a declaratory equitable judgment. And that's what we're going out into the legal world with by the international.
Judge Alfred, can you just expand that just a wee bit? It was large and now it's reduced. It's not readable.
Zoom in a bit.
So you can't see this, or you can?
No, we can see it, but it could have a little bit of zoom.
Okay, let me see, layout, design, video, but just, let me stop share. Let me share, I know that, and let me go to Tribunal, let me share again. How's that? Is that better?
It's the same, but it's there, so we can zoom in on it ourselves if we go close to the
Yeah.
screen.
You also have this in the email that I sent out, and you have it as a PDF attached to the email. So you have it here, you have it as a PDF attached to the email, and you have it as an email.
Got it.
You can watch on your own.
Yes, I've got it here now.
Okay.
Thank you.
But that's about as most as I can manipulate it, okay?
Perfect.
So, but this is us trotting out to the world our creation, we're a tribunal of conscience, and that's a known quantity in the legal world. And so we will be creating a declaratory equitable judgment by the International Natural Tribunal for Public Health and Justice. This is our website. And by way of background, I'm going to say this very quickly. We have to thank two information technology experts in Nepal, because Typod.com, that we've been clients of which for decades, and for all of our blogs, we created 77 blogs with them, announced to us without notice on September 6th that they were going out of business on September 30th. And they gave us fraudulent information that we'd be able to save our blogs. And one of the 77 blogs was a tribunal website of peaceandspace.org. And through friends of ours that are our housemates here in Vancouver, who's one of the district attorneys in Nepal, they contacted two experts, IT experts in Nepal, who helped us save the outline of the tribunal website. So that's why we have a tribunal website at peaceandspace.org. And that's our email address. And there should be a www.peaceandspace.org. I'll correct that. So the presenting tribunal judges will be Judge Marianne Pers and Ananda Bursman and expert Simone. And the trial case name, like Judge Jones versus ABC Corporation, will the Bondicide-Barnevarnet, Family Sovereignty and Universal Parental Rights Act, and RICO, Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, which all the those people that go to the annual those annual meetings and drink it up and do all the plans, versus all the member nations of the United Nations, all the member nations of the World Health Authority. We should add WEF. What is it? The World
Economic Forum.
World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are really the exoteric public relations of the Bilderberg Group.
Okay.
So
let's add member nations. Nations, excuse me. World Economic Forum. shall we add the World Bilderberger Group?
Yeah.
The Bilderberger Group needs to be served. It's overtime. They need to be served. They're behind Palantir. They're behind Barnevarnet. They need to be served. It's BlackRock, Vanguard, and one other that is going through Bilderberg. They need to be served.
Oh yeah, it's you're right, it's Vanguard, yeah, who is it, the three?
Who else besides Bilderberger should?
You should-
BlackRock, Vanguard.
Vanguard
Sorry,
and Allstate.
could you speak?
Yeah, also.
Use the Foreign Sovereignty Act?
Sorry,
Could you use the Foreign Sovereignty Act?
Foreign Sovereignty Act.
No, you have to add World State and BlackRock.
BlackRock.
BlackRock and Vanguard.
And Vanguard, yeah, they're huge.
And State Street. It's those three.
Yeah, State Street.
State Street, Vanguard, and BlackRock. They're behind everything. And they channel it through the Bilderbergers and the public relations as World Economic Forum.
Vanguard.
Yeah.
Vanguard, BlackRock,
And State.
Street.
Okay.
Oh, you got it already. It's already in the list.
So,
So,
so Ananda, would you consider the committee of 300? Because my research, it's at the top.
Yeah, Coleman's work. Committee 300, you can throw it in there. It's hard to verify, but the black nobility comes under BlackRock. So the Committee 300 is under BlackRock in that sense.
okay.
No, it's at the top. And the reason I say that is because I've actually seen documentation out of the Philippines, out of the newly formed Cordillera Nation that formed on March the 16th, 2024. And I saw the documentations, all 600 and some banks around the world who signed off the Filipino gold. And as a Canadian, I was privy to see the Canadian banks that signed off, the amounts on secret accounts. And I'll put it on here on the record. I saw the two Canadians who signed off on behalf of Canada. One was Stephen Harper and the other is the deceased James Flaherty. And I saw, so I was privy to that documentation. So, the Committee of 300 is, they control the UN. It's, and at one time the Queen was the head of it. So,
yeah, the black nobility essentially. Committee 300 is it's a structure that the Trilateral Commission also uses. 100, 100, 100.
Anything of the Masons or not?
Well, the whole thing is very much Masonically driven, so it's difficult to get that into the legislation.
Well, moving on here. Nation state, at the nation state, national, provincial, state, municipal, regional, local family law societies, and functionally similar organization. Nation state, national, provincial, state, municipal, regional, local child protection societies, and functionally similar organizations, and any and all similarly situated organizations, agency, or institution not listed above, public or private, and nominally carrying on apparent, quote, child protection functions in violation of the true and authentic family sovereignty and universal parental rights act. And then we have a tribunal trial jurisdictional statement. And that is, we have 3 solid legal grounds for our jurisdiction. At the international, national, state, provincial, municipal, family court, family law, child protection agency, Barnevarnet, and institutions. Okay, let's put levels. Number 1, bondicide and family genocide as prohibited by Articles 5 and 6 of the International Criminal Court Statute. Number 2, Family Sovereignty and Universal Parental Rights Act, attached PDF. Number 3, RICO, Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act. Conspiracy by corrupt Bilderbergers is an example.
Via the Wallenberg family.
Sorry, I didn't get that. What was that?
Via the Wallenberg family. So that's on the record, documentable. They hosted the Bilderbergers.
Via Wallenberg. Is that in Sweden or is that worldwide?
They are a Swedish so-called noble family, yes. They've hosted the Bilderbergers in 1962, in 1973, 1984, and this year in Stockholm. So Marcus Wallenberg and his brother and their relatives have long-term been in the Bilderbergers and have pushed the agendas. They invest into the Norwegian the Barnevarnet system, which is the most advanced system, which the Attorney General of Norway says at Strasbourg a few years ago is the model that will be introduced to the whole world. So that's been the experimental zone. They also want maximum return for their investment. So that means they use the magic of the wheel of suffering, samsara. So they're very lazy magicians. They use samsara, the wheel of suffering, in order to get maximum return from separating or producing bondicide by separating children from the parents. It's 71% of families where the children are taken in Norway, the parents were against it. Whereas in Sweden, it's 26%, as opposed to 71%, and 10% in Germany. I do not know what the percentage is in Canada. I would love to know that. And I think that's something we need to have in resolution. But it appears that Canada is certainly beginning to utilize the machinery of Barnevarnet.
Right. Now, for example, they could be prosecuted under Bondicide, under the Family Act, under RICO. Under RICO, the criminal penalties or violations can lead to a maximum of 20-year prison sentence and forfeiture of all proceeds from criminal activity. And a civil cause of action, the law also allows private individuals injured by a RICO violation to sue for triple the damages they have suffered. So this is where, you know, if you coming in and you're protected, then you can go against the dark side. So this is the light side coming in now. Boom.
Alfred, do you want to include also JP Morgan as the hub? Do we have independents? I mean, that one is basically everything's being sort of wired through that. One of my experts is telling me.
JP Morgan.
JP Morgan or JP Morgan Chase. When he comes on to speak, he can speak about Goldman Sachs. What's happened?
I mean, should I add these names?
Yes.
I haven't done any factual research. Have you done factual research to include
But one of my experts will talk about that, and I'm thinking that if we can get started into it, we may flesh out the defendants in a much more accurate way as we get going.
Could I have those names again, please?
Okay. JP Morgan Chase.
JP Morgan.
And you might as well throw in the Rockefeller Foundation as well.
Yeah.
As they're interrelated.
And Goldman Sachs.
Okay, Goldman Sachs.
Morgan Stanley. And Bank of America, although all the banks will tie in.
Did you guys get the Federal Reserve?
Did
you guys get the Federal Reserve?
Yeah. Hold
Wells
on,
Fargo?
because I just can't keep these in mind. Bank of America. So are you saying that Bank of America engages in bondicide
Correct.
violations of the Family Sovereign Act and
Correct.
RICO regarding?
Correct. But what I'm suggesting is that once we get started into it, the defendant list may reshape itself if that works, because we may get more information. One of the experts coming in will talk about very specifically how he's traced the monies in at least the United States, and then we can. And I think when Simone and Ananda are able to come in longer, they can trace it through Norway.
Oh, okay, good. Now, just a procedural issue is that when we're in the area of witness testimony and document testimony, if witnesses come with written testimony accompanying their verbal testimony, that's excellent, because they can submit it to the tribunal. That then will become part of the trial record, which will be on the website. And when we serve people, more and more will be that part of the trial record. So it will back up our judgment, okay? So just start thinking strategically, because we're actually think as a prosecutor, we're issuing a declaratory judgment, but start thinking as a prosecutor that you want this judgment to stand as against the defendants that you're seeking here. And you want this testimony to stand. So just start thinking about all of that.
May I ask you something?
Sure.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the Foreign Sovereignties Immunities Act, if that applies.
I'm not familiar. Is that a Canadian law?
No, I think it's international.
Okay.
I'd have to go through my notes to find it, information.
I'm not familiar with that piece of legislation.
I just thought I'd put it out there. Marianne's.
Yeah, well, maybe you want to look it up and brief us on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, I heard of that act actually, Chris, of the Foreign Sovereignties Immunities Act at the international level.
Okay.
Yeah, you can seize assets, bank accounts, shipping, all of it.
Yeah, it gives people immunity basically. It gives them immunity from actually seizure of those assets if those assets are known to be laundered or corrupt in the exchange of money. Yeah, you're right. It gives them immunity. They're protected under that act under foreign jurisdictions. Yeah.
I'm just trying to find, look at the notes. YNF are saying, greetings, shall we include global health initiatives such as Global Fund, Gavi, Vaccine Alliance?
Yeah, Gavi, Rockefeller Foundation, it's all ad hoc, really. I think that we have to establish this law and also this crime, bondicide. That's the most important thing that's there. It can be used then by anybody to defend and to eventually enforce. Now,
I'm down to the pretrial evidentiary note from presiding judge Ananda Bosman. So an Illuminati family is the major Barnevarnet investor, and that's a memorandum that we're reading into the evidence. And it has Barnevarnet is all about the money. It's run from tax havens. There's something in some language there.
The chart is in English, though. The chart is in English.
Yeah, we'll
2025
presentation.
Bilderberger meeting reports Bilderberger meeting to be held in Sweden. Why it's crucial to stop the removals of children in Norway. set up for children rights, and then real family stories in YouTube. We've put in Ananda's memorandum as part of the trial record. If any tribunal judge, either the presenting judges or other judges, or any of the witnesses want to enter in anything as evidence, please contact the tribunal presiding judge, that's myself, at peaceandspace.org, and send the document as a attached PDF, and say, I'd like this entered into evidence, and then I can enter it into evidence. And hopefully all of this will be posted on our tribunal judgment with the declaratory judgment. Okay? This is just, and here we have this Family Sovereignty and Universal Parental Rights Act. Okay. And that goes on and on and on. Okay, so that's there, and that's our logo. Okay, now let me just say one thing. It is now 12:16, so we've gone for an hour and 15 minutes. I want to ask one question. How long can the tribunal go for today? How many hours? 4 hours?
I'm not sure it'll take that long. The presentation I've got, I think maybe about 3.5. I just want to be very respectful and sensitive to my witnesses who have taken time out of their schedule. So I just want to make sure that that all works with them.
Yeah. So you're saying that you would like to have 4 more hours?
Or 3 more. But I'd like some input because I don't want to, I've allotted for, I'm giving a small presentation of a few pages myself with an audio of the overview of stuff. And then I would have about, I think there's about six different witnesses, each coming in at about 15 to 20 minutes.
Let's just deal with today. How many hours would you need today?
I'm going to say 3.
3. Okay. So that would, let's say if we start by 12:30, 1:30, 2:30, 3:30, 4. So we'd be going till 4 Pacific time. Can the tribunal sit until 4 Pacific time?
Judge Alfred, I could only, but that's okay. I could stay till about 2:30 max, and then I have to head out. I have an appointment.
But could you watch the video
Same here.
for the next trial, which will be next Sunday?
Can I?
Can you watch the rest of the proceeding
Sure.
next Sunday?
Sure. Yeah, I can next Sunday.
Great.
And yeah.
Would it be okay to sit until 7 Pacific time today? Is that okay, Judge Ananda and expert Simone and Judge Howard?
Until 7 Pacific time?
Yeah.
I think you mean it would be 7 Eastern time.
No.
I'm at 3:18 now, so another 3 hours would take me to 6.
Yeah, 7 Eastern time.
We would also have something else coming up today still at around 2:30ish. So that means Pacific time.
Okay.
So that means
So
at
the question,
12:31. It would be another 2 hours that we can certainly
okay, so the question is this: should we adjourn now and then start next Sunday? And the first business of order would be Marianne Pears.
Yes.
Sunday's your birthday.
I'm gonna say I would prefer if, because people have given time today, if we can the very least start. I think I mean, I'm very respectful to my witnesses who've come in now twice over, and if they can speak maybe if for a couple of hours worth, in the very least, the expert witnesses have taken time out of.
Right, but we have two of the key presenters who are stating that they have time limits. How much longer can you stay, Judge Ananda and expert Simone?
Well, similar to Judge Rita, like until 2:30 Pacific time, like the next 2 hours. We had no idea.
So you could stay for 2 hours.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Is it satisfactory for you to present for 2 hours? Judge Marianne.
Two of my expert witnesses seems to have lost off the call at this point. So I mean, why don't I just give my brief presentation I put out of a 4-page, play the audio, allow my parents to speak, because my parents have given up time out of their day and have been waiting. I think there are about 4 of them, 5 of them. And then I think we can go to change it up a bit. Would that be fair to allow the parents to speak? They're here.
Okay, now you are authorized to affirm in all of your witnesses, not swear them in, but affirm them in. Okay, so it is now 12:21, and we'll go till 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. Over to you, Judge Marianne.
Thank you. I'm wondering if it's possible to do a share host so that I can play an audio. I did send it to you at one point, Alfred.
You can do that, and we will have you as the speaker, and go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start. I'm going to go through I have a presentation, very brief. One of the things I would like to say at the onset, with the greatest of respect, that I know that there are all kinds of stories of child trafficking and sex trafficking. This is not about those. And the danger when we start to hover in or connect that, the very dangerous thing to try to connect those things. If you want to, if there's a presentation at a future time about child sex trafficking, that's a whole different situation. And the danger is that if we connect the two, then the child protection agencies in government have a reason to keep doing what they're doing, with an excuse that they're doing it to prevent child sex trafficking. What I'm trying to say is this is a whole different animal. It is a very difficult one to palate, because it will mean that many people in the profession of law, myself as a mediator, we've been very duped. We've been very duped. And so, unfortunately, I've lost my 2 witnesses, but one in particular will provide testimony of the fraudulency of the whole family court system. And it's a tough one to swallow, but if we take a look at it in the way that Matt will present it. So I put this together. I think it is a war crime. I think that it has to be talked about. Nobody is talking about the actual child trafficking, human trafficking, which is the family court and all of these changes of custody. Every time there's a custody change, there's a trafficking going on. So here's what I put together. Dear esteemed judges, we're gathered here today for this tribunal to endorse a war crime and a crime against humanity that I present as bondicide, and to map out an international act that precludes any person, entity, or other from ever interfering into family matters to separate children from those that created them, their mothers and fathers. So I'm very, and not everybody in the tribunal will agree with me, but I don't believe there should be any body that is able to intercept into a natural family. The term bondicide was created in 2015 alongside discussion with 4 other victim parents, as we, the target parents, strove to find some sanity or reasoning in the face of insanity in the people and mechanics of a family court and child protection services, which used its government and court resources to take and keep children from us permanently and many other parents. Bondicide is the crime of separating and alienating a parent and his or her child by using government, state, court, legal resources. The crime is by its nature insidious, as those committing it count upon shaming, torture, and degrading target parents. Expert witness Matt Dawson will explain, I'll have to do it another day, taking a child from a parent, terminating custody is not lawful, and that the family court system is in fact fraudulent. It rarely has trials, but counts upon sideways moves, opinion, stress on the parent in the wake of demoralizing the parent support networks of family and community. Very well-trained social engineered workers turn the family and community against a parent. In all cases, you will see the state, government, crown also acquires criminal charges on the parents. You're going to see that at the same time when they take a child. The state also acquires these criminal charges, which at one level diminishes the confidence of the people and community to withdraw and withhold any support for the target parent. But at other levels, there's a financial incentive at work in that the securities that the court has taken out for the family court case against the parent arguably increase in value with other charges. And we will see that validation from some, when we see some court bonds that are from Bloomberg reports. It has been submitted that bondicide is a crime far more severe in suffering than a death or a homicide. To deprive a parent of their child and a child of their parent, and thus childhood, by manipulating the people, by fabricating and twisting the narrative that the parent deserves this. It is similar to a witch hunt and burn at the stake of the parent. Save that witch hunts, the victim actually dies within the day, whereas with bondicide, the parent's heart and soul and the child's slowly burn over the course of their life. It is at the root a standard psychopathic technique to silence the victim. So you're going to see that this is very rare that people are standing up against the institutions, all the family services, because it's a very, very, very insidious crime, and they will humiliate us. I submit to the tribunal that this crime of bondicide is also a copy, in essence, of the quintessential crime against the people on the earth, which we see in many forms, knowledge and connection shut off to us to understand more thoroughly where we come from. From that, there is an interception, manipulation of perception taking place. Internationally acclaimed author David Icke suggests that something supernatural has preyed upon us as people and trapped us into a 5-sense reality prison, unable to connect or see connection to what and where we are created. Whether one believes Icke's submissions or not, we can certainly agree that in the world we experience, preying upon our children and the child to parent, the creator bond, is an engineered manner. So in other words, I'm paralleling the overtake of whatever is what is created humankind, and that severance and disturbance in our connection. There's a mirroring in what you're doing with the child and the creator being the parent, source to parent. The stolen, separated children are manipulated to believe that their parent either abandoned them, in which cases they resent the parent, or sufficiently dangerous that the state had to intercede, in which case the children fear their parent. The target parents are manipulated to blame themselves and to spin endlessly in a circle of shell shock. What you will see in this tribunal when the parents do present is you will see patterns in their voice of being trapped in shell shock. When shock happens, according to Dr. Peter Levine, there are different responses: fight, flight, or even freeze. Many of the parents you will find are going to be trapped in a circular reasoning, trying to figure out the small details of what happened, of the accusations. They're stuck, and their details will be very finely tuned, and their memory of sometimes decades ago, because they're trapped in that shock, which is again this emotional torture, which, as Simone and Ananda have outlined, is a harvesting of suffering at I believe, at the highest of levels. The crime is a soul snatching, or seen another way, a slow, agonizing emotional death, as per Dr. William Dubray, another expert. He's not here, professor of psychology. No person, agency, or other entity have any right to interfere, or any authority over a child or parent and over family if this is to be deemed as a war crime. The tribunal will hear testimony from parents of fabricated rumors, false positive drug tests, harassment by police, police assault, unlawful imprisonment, forgery, degradation through bogged up mental health professionals and judges and lawyers who are simply lying. The tribunal will hear the root of what mental health professionals come from a Freudian background and then question the validity of the opinions which are solidifying these separations of children and parents. I argue that at a secondary level, the world governors and elite powers seek to outlaw natural childbearing, and that these family courts severing custody, whether by fueling parent-to-parent fights or by allowing a child protection system predator to consume, constitute these stepping stones for this to be accepted by society, a world that Aldous Huxley describes in Brave New World, where natural children are taken by the state and outlawed as they can be made by other artificial means. I argue that at other levels of incentive, elite slave masters seek the product of the stolen children in their future labor to commit atrocities. How else can people push buttons to kill in Palantir? Children whose parents are taken desensitizes to survive in Stockholm response, and that they are intended to grow up lost in trauma, unable to feel, and to be able to push these buttons. And force injections into people of deadly substances, vaccines. The reality is that many children alienated from their parents develop severe autoimmune disorders. I just met a woman who's had 5 bouts of cancer, having gone through estrangement from her parents. In addition to asking the tribunal to recognize bondicide as a war crime and crime against humanity, I ask that it devise both a Sovereign Parent Act to protect families from foreign interference, particularly by court and government, and that endorse a remedy for stolen children to be turned to parents, which I submit may be affected by deeming the people who continue to harbor and detain the stolen children as active in crime, foster parents, for example. So I'm just going to start, just to begin, very slowly finishing here. There are different stepping stones being used, designed to normalize these separations of bondicides. One familiar vehicle being used is the family court. Court, which is government, uses its own resources to pervert and invert once loving bonds. In parent versus parent cases, to effect this bondicide, the court orchestrates for the children to be raised by the other alienating parent, inverting the love between two parents that conceived the life for a child into hate to separate and destroy the parent and child. What Dr. Dubray will explain is that you're often going to see in parent versus parent the court deliberately placing the child where they know the parent is so angry that they'll deprive the other parent of all access in abusive ways. It's being deliberately set up that way. They've got the data to show that. Apart from parent versus parent cases, we find state versus parent cases of child welfare, protection, advocate, or other government interested parties. I use that quite succinctly, judges, because interest is a financial claim. They impose themselves and guise that they're required third-party nanny parties. Such a scheme is a rather direct way for the government third party to at some point cause the public to accept the government or powers that by grabbing any child it wants, it owns it. Child welfare protection schemes are pyramid schemes, the concept born in the 19th century and seen in the agency as Barnevarnet, 1871 in Norway. Other ones of the Children's Aid Society in 1870 in New York, in 1902 in Ontario. But I think we're going to see that Barnevarnet is actually the model and is the closest one we've actually see to direct connections with the WEF, and that it actually is very close to just walking in and just taking a child without even going through bothering to give the narrative. I will show you evidence to this court in the child agency's own documents that all of the drummed up stories are just that they are telling their workers to actually give the appearance there's a problem when there is, they know there isn't. For the desired effect of the separations, the state incentivizes the monetary gain. And then we get to the birth bonds. Agencies receive money, such as Children's Aid, Barnevarnet, to impose themselves to pretend they're intervening in child neglect. As such, these corporate souls sneak their way into the people, accepting their presence by manipulation of the vulnerability of children and the need for special, albeit unlawful and unelected agencies to claim and interfere and invade into families. So one of the difficulties that we face is the stigma attached. And the way in which this predator of the child agencies gets in is by sneaking in through the emotional response of people. Oh, it's the children. The sad, we have to go to these lengths to, yes, we have to go to these lengths to save the children, such that we'll bend the rules and allow the state to go in and not actually have proper cases against parents. The inverted message being sent is that it is safer to take a child away from a parent that could be dangerous than risk something happening. If you take a child away from a parent, something's just happened. They've already committed the most egregious abuse and bondicide that can happen. That, dear judges, is the crime. The agency's pyramid schemes are built upon money natural parents are forced to pay when they're, and this happens, as you'll see in Barnevarnet, when natural parents are actually forced to pay when their children are taken from them. And in other places, the security payments that would otherwise go as child tax benefits and so on would be are being turned over. I believe that we will find sufficient evidence, at least, to show that there is an investment going on and rooting through different pockets of investors and stakeholders. Either way, though, I will say that I don't believe that actually finding out the pyramid schemes and revealing exactly how it works is necessary to actually get these convictions. They're committing a bondicide. They're using legal government resources. And at some point, if we trap ourselves into having to figure it out, we will get shut down. These agencies hire and count upon scouts to find vulnerable situations. It's a snitch and snatch for which people are manipulated into calling in a similar way that witch hunts were done, incentivizing people for dopamine rush to roast someone for healthcare. I play as a sample for the Tribunal short segment of this in play of two CAS workers attempting to persuade a father of a victim, daughter, mother, that he should jump aboard a witch hunt to deem his daughter the mother as a parent due to alcoholism. So I have a short audio. I'm only going to play the very beginning because what I'm trying to capture here is just that you hear in play the actual crime taking place of these two social workers. They're people who were hired as Children's Aid Society workers who are trying to harass a grandfather. So he's the grandfather to the victim child, the father to the victim mother, and they're trying to convince him. And you can see that they are trying to convince him and persuade him to see his daughter as an alcoholic, and that just isn't the case. In fact, in this particular case, it was proven that they had a false positive, and mom suffered indefinitely for so many years to come, deprived of her daughter. So I'm just gonna go to this. I'm asking people to pay attention to the tone here. The tone of the two women trying to have illogical ways of just trying to drum in and persuade the father. And it's courtesy of Dave Willis. Okay. You can hear it. They've gone to his house, and they've got his.
My name is Dave Willis. This is my conversation with Julia Abel and Tam McAllister from the Catholic Children's Aid Society. And this is during the time when Lillian was taken away in 2011.
Hi. Fine. Yes. Jennifer Conway, yeah. No, she's not feeling. Okay, this is hi, Julia. Hi, how are you? Okay. That's good. So she's not feeling well? No. I think it's weather change. She got a girl at work the same way. Oh, with migraines? Yeah, she gets up pretty bad. So Julia will be the new worker once I'm staffed at court, so she doesn't take over the case. Okay. Just because Lily, that's probably not be my school. And, yeah. The other thing we came out to talk about, and I was really hoping Jennifer would be here, is we wanted to talk about where we're going with this, because Jennifer's made the decision to do controlled drinking, so she's not giving up drinking. Oh, is that right? Yeah. But she said that? Yeah, she's not prepared to do abstinence now. But did she actually say that to you? That she's going to do controlled drinking? Yeah, she said that she doesn't see it with having a couple drinks at all. Like, is this recently or no, it's been a while. Yeah. No, I mean, like, recently she said this to you or a while back? It's been a while back, yeah. Like a month or two. Why have things changed? I don't know. Just asking. So, not mention anything to anybody. Well, okay, and that's why we wanted her here, because everybody's getting a different message. Okay. And it's too bad she's not here. But one of the things Jennifer Lithcombe told us during your interview is that you'd be prepared to get a bigger place with Lily and Jennifer. If I could get one, yes. Yeah. But I don't know. Right now it's pretty tight with I look around here. Okay. That's pretty limited. Like Jennifer had two places, one pretty close to here. It's just at the top of the hill. And a lady was all willing to go for it. And I stayed. All of a sudden said no. The other one, same thing. And my understanding is that the first time you had said to me too that she gives out too much information. Oh, possibly. The other one. Well, if she says too much. I don't know. I'm just saying that she may have. I don't know. Yeah. And the other one, I believe she lost because she told the woman that she likes to do cooking and there was going to be shared, according to Leanne. Yeah, something like that. Which I thought was kind of odd. You know, I work with the lady, so it's kind of weird. She said that. Okay. But I never confronted her about it. I just left it at that. Jennifer or the woman you work with? The one I work with. I didn't bother calling and asking why. Like, why did she said her cooking, but I thought that was kind of odd. But then I was going to question her about it. So that's our concern, right? Is that like she's losing houses, she's not being able to get houses, and well, it's limited with funding, right? She just doesn't have the funding, obviously, because of limited income rate. So right. I mean, like anybody, I couldn't do it. I don't think he could do it if she had limited income. Well, you know what? I don't know. Because I'm not in that position. Exactly. So we don't know, right? So, but I know lots of people do it. That's what I do know. So those are the concerns. And the other concerns are the fact that with the controlled drinking, that she's not prepared to give up drinking. So we still run the risk of her, because stress and negative emotional is a high risk area for her. So when we were talking at our last meeting, one of the things was to speak to you about maybe thinking about getting a larger place with her limited income that assists you, right? Because she would have to, so that all three of you would be living together. Oh yeah, I understand that. Yeah, that would probably be the primary thing of doing, yes, for sure. But the bottom line at this time, the market in this area is pretty limited. Mm-hmm. Okay, but maybe you can look into that, because here's the problem. We're going into a year, Lily's in care. The next, under the Child Welfare Act, we start to look for Crown Ward. But why? Oh, because she can't be in our care. She can't be staying with us. But we can't let her. No, she's with me. But nobody's got a concrete plan. Like, show us the plan, get Lily out. Like, that's what we're asking. That's the plan. Yeah. Is it the plan? Because there's still some concerns. My understanding is there's still concerns because you're not recognizing the impact of Jennifer's drinking on her ability to parent. Well, nobody's saying when she's not drinking, she's not a really good parent. But when she drinks. Yeah. But have you actually seen her? Oh, yeah, I've seen her. Yeah, I've seen her. Like in the school? When she's been drinking? Yeah. Have you actually seen her drinking? I've seen her in the... That's why Lily's in care, because I did walk in on her. Yeah, absolutely. But in where? At her home? Yeah. How did you just walk in? She opened the door. Oh. Because I talked to her about that, and she said no. She doesn't even remember. Okay. I know I was there. But nobody else was there? I know we asked the neighbor to come up because she couldn't be parenting that child. The neighbor was supervised? Who? The neighbor. You don't know this. This is a year-old information. I don't like. I didn't understand that when I heard that. How did you get in? Like how? She opened the door. I knocked on the door and she opened the door. Is this during the evening or during the day? No, it was at the after-school program. Okay. So she was intoxicated and would have been intoxicated if Lily had come home to this. Oh, so you came from the school to her house? Yeah. With Lily? No, Lily was still at school. Okay. And this was like at the time around 4:30? I don't know. Yeah. It's in the, it would be in the, it's in the affidavit. Okay. Yeah, the time would be in the affidavit. Now, at the time you saw her, she was intoxicated. I know, but it's just you that saw her? I'm just curious. Like, yeah, it was just me. Okay. Yeah. And was there any, like, when you went to pick up Lil, was there any police present or no? No. Why would I have a police present? Well, because from what I heard, she said you had to sign an affidavit or something. I signed this right away, or no? We didn't do that until the next day when she was sober. Yeah, no. And Lily was at school. Yeah, that was the thing. But you asked for her to sign this. A temporary care agreement. What was the reason? For her to get some help. Okay. And for Lily to go into care.
Okay. Let me go back in the Zoom. Okay. I didn't want to inundate the entire too much longer, but I wanted to make the point here that Jennifer, the mother, her child was taken. They were separated for, I guess, about 10 years. It came out later that the drug test that she was forced to undergo, that was a hair strand test, was a false positive. There are numerous lawsuits stemming around from parents who were forced to undergo this, and it was false. And yet Jennifer, and they just say, oh, well, we're very sorry. So she lost full custody, and Lillian has never been the same, and Lillian was shipped out provinces away. You can hear the bullying from the workers. You can hear them trying to impose themselves as experts and trying to con. Okay. And you see how they're trying to work. And this is how they work. You can hear the voices. They're very imposing. They're quite rapist, actually. They go in and they thwart themselves into the community. You'll hear testimony. I mean, I'll testify another day, but you're going to hear testimony where they actually make phone calls. They sabotage the parents' efforts. In Jennifer's case, you may have noticed that they kept trying different avenues. She drinks, she can't get a stable place. They try all kinds of different things. And one of the points that they were trying to say, she couldn't find an apartment. And you may have noticed the discussion at the beginning. And in fact, we found out later, evidence came out that Children's Aid called the apartment landlords and discouraged them from taking Jennifer in, saying you're dealing with a mother who's losing a kid. So they went in and they've done that. They caused me to lose 2 jobs, and they actually go in and sabotage and take you out. So if I look at it in like, if there's a hunt for a gazelle is out there and there's several lions going in, what's the first thing? You send your first lions out to take out the legs. So with Jennifer, they took out the community, forced her into a program, which Dave, if you check out when I provide Dave put a flow chart, you will find that the program they forced her to go into for rehab for 30 days is actually Jennifer Tweed, all fitting into the same pyramid of schemes, so that they forced her to go in something and it made money, and then it went through the Children's Aid. So you're going to see all the investor pool that Dave put together. I'm going to just finish off before I get to the witnesses. I will provide to the tribunal current evidence of the thank God you're there, Matt, of the fund scheme in play by a contractor to the government, the Children's Aid Society, as well as we're going to go in depth of Barnevarnet, as again, that's the model. I will provide some more, the flow chart, and I will provide some more information that actually shows in the Children's Aid Society and the Ukraine Child Protection, and in Barnevarnet, and in some of the United States ones, where they actually admit it. They actually put it in, they just give the appearance. You can see it. Simone Bosman is an expert as a family and current international lawyer, and she will introduce what we will see as the most advanced child welfare bondicide scheme, which is actually underway in Norway. And we're going to find that in Norway, the investors are already tied into the WF. And so what I understand is, I will tip that down. I'm going to, with the permission of the tribunal, I'm going to ask if I can get my first expert witness, Matt Dawson, who is with a Hope in Darkness and is certified as is a legal expert. He's certified as a parental alienation expert. And I wonder if Matt can tell us a little bit about what he sees in a giant, like in this parental alienation, there, whether parent to parent or state to parent, this separation. Matt, I'm gonna swear you in.
Hey, thank you, Judge Marion.
Thank you, Matt. I'm gonna affirm. Can you for the tribunal, can you provide your full name, and then I guess I affirm you in that you tell
Yes, my full name is Matthew, Matthew Dotson, Dotson, and I reside in California, USA.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth?
Yes.
Okay. So Matt, I'm going to start by giving you the floor, the platform here. You have been working with Dr. William Dubree, who is this professor in psychology. You have been working together for how long on this project?
I think we're going into our 4th year with Bill and I.
Would you be able to tell the tribunal what you see is happening from these family courts? Do you see the family court as a legitimate court?
No, it is not. In fact, they are courts of equity. They are not courts of law. At least in the United States, we don't have a common law system. We're loosely based on that system. However, we do have due process, and the controlling law is the Constitution. But these courts are not given the authority of a title of an Article III court, such as the Supreme Court of the United States, which is obligated to follow the Constitution. They're state courts of equity, and they are supposed to be making rulings based upon the then standard language in the state constitution, which obviously would not be superior to the U.S. Constitution. But we see these violations over and over and over again, almost universally. It's the same violation.
So would you say that when you talk about it's not an Article III court, and I've seen information research on that to validate it. Do you see any common themes with when parents, when they're going through the family court process? Are there actual trials? What's happening? What do you see in there?
At least in this country, and for the most part, Canada, what we've seen is that these courts are operating on a motion basis. So they're motion courts. What this does a couple of things. By not having a trial, there is no final ruling, and there's language typically written into the state statutes and codes, or whatever jurisdiction you're in, that provide that if there is no final ruling, that ruling that's given either in an instant order or an order after hearing or whatever construct they've devised cannot be challenged in an upper level courtroom. So the appeal process is basically the litigants are kept away from appealing many of these rulings and decisions, and kept in the lower court system to vacillate for years. I think we've engaged over 3,000 parents over the last 2 years, and in over 70% of the cases that we've come into contact with, the average tenure in the family court system is over 5 years.
Would you say in some ways, do you see that this is done in a strategic way, that they're doing this to the parents, and also in an emotionally strategic way to cause trauma? What do you see there?
Well, what we see is there are commonalities. We approach things from a behavioral standpoint. We don't rely on opinions or biases that are driven out of the mental health industry to keep this, ball rolling. We base our involvement with the parents, on nothing more than behavioral observations, the science of behavior. So we can say with a great deal of certainty that what we know to be true is true by the facts that are presented in these cases. And subsequent to that, what we've learned is that in nearly Every single case that we've come into contact with, the court has given custody of the primary custody of the children to the unfit parent. And one can only conclude based upon that outcome that it's by design. The design is that the courts very early on in these cases monetize the case. If you go to any lawyer's office and pay for your interview in this country, one of the first things that the lawyer will have you do for the benefit of the court is to provide them with a financial balance sheet. They want to know what resources you have, what assets you have, where's the chink in the armor? Where can they extract money from the case and the litigants? By placing the child, at least from our perspective, with the unfit parent, it ensures that the fit parent is going to fight. And that's what happens. We end up with a situation where they are fighting for their lives, they're fighting for their children's lives, and born out of that is perpetual litigation and perpetual cost. And the only benefactors are the legal industry. So you've got lawyers, guardians ad litems. The mental health industry is closely tied to the legal industry, the court system. We know that these judges' campaigns are funded by law firms. All of this goes around the AFCC and the Bar Association. It all circulates in that same cesspool of money extracted from families to keep their lifestyles going forward.
Would you say that there's a tie? Like I'm trying to look at how there's the commonality between child protection, all these, the state coming in and just parent versus parent. Would you say that the commonality in all the cases is a custody split, an estrangement and alienation?
Well, I think that's more of a result of the circumstances that are presented. If you're standing on a street corner and you're giving out free ice cream, chances are you're going to have a lot more people eating ice cream that day than anything else. So that's essentially what's occurred here. You've got an entire movement in the legal industry dedicated to monetizing a family, keeping the balls in the air, keep the mudslinging going, where they and they alone profit. And of course, you've got one unhinged party in this split who's been incentivized themselves through their attorneys, often on the direct advice of their attorney, to make false allegations or to involve themselves in this nonsense, knowing that the other party is going to fight tooth and toenail to keep their relationship with their child, not only for their own benefit, but for the benefit of the child. I mean, this is an evolutionary fact. Children require two parents. If they didn't, we wouldn't need a male and a biological male and a biological female to produce offspring. So there's by design a requirement that both genders are involved in the production of and the raising of offspring. And the court has needled its way in and fractured that through a lot of trickery. And this is the result. We've got upwards of 300 million families globally who are affected by what is commonly referred to as parental alienation tactics, which in our mind is a set of behaviors. There's no mental health involved in it. It's simply acts. They're behaviors that can be shown and proven to be detrimental to the parent-child relationship.
So would you agree? I'm trying to I'm trying to put under the same umbrella situations where the court puts a child with an alienating, abusive parent, and also at the same time see when the state comes in the child welfare cases. What I'm trying to do, if this makes sense, is to show the commonality that the court always or pretty much doesn't want to give equal custody, but always wants to do a custody split. So whether it's from and then cause the child never to have a relationship back with the parent, whether it's from being put with an alienating parent or shipped off with child protection services, which often would you say dovetails with those cases too?
Oh, absolutely. And this is proven by the mechanisms contained in the system itself. So if you take a child who's in a CPS scenario where there's an allegation made, we're working on a couple of cases right now where there were some allegations made. They're extremely suspect. It starts off with a failure to adhere to due process. So the parents' homes are invaded by, armed men acting on behalf of these state agencies who are acting on hearsay that's been presented to them under the guise of protecting the child. And they walk in people's lives. They ignore the fact that there's due process requirements. Oftentimes, the children are taken without a warrant, in spite of being warned that they're not allowed in the home without one. And then that's just the starting point. You then get these judges who are not judges. They're presidents of the division of the corporation underneath of the CPS or Health and Human Services organization to further monetize these children. What's at stake in the CPS in particular are huge, huge federal incentives to keep these children out of the care of their natural families. And, if you look at the list of compensate from the federal government to the states through these agencies, the highest level would be a young child from age 0 to 3 who is adoptable, preferably a white child, and they will viciously go after that family with very, very little evidence. They will lie, cheat, and steal. They'll manipulate, create evidence. They will misdirect mail for notice. There are a number of tactics that we see being employed over and over and over again. And all of this is certainly not for the best interest of the child. It's for the best interest of the agency to monetize that child. So at the end of that example, if you can gain control of a 0 to 3-year-old white child, the value on the open market for trafficking in an adoption scenario is immediately $1.5 million. Probably the only circumstance that would eclipse that would be if the agency itself places a special needs child into a foster scenario where they can extract federal funding under the ADA for special needs. That can equate to millions of dollars annually, just by its own.
Yeah, I think one of the parents is going
I
to
agree.
testify. Yeah, that his baby, perfect for the picking, his 1-year-old son who suffered a disability, a muscular degenerative disease, just plucked, just like this that we saw. Now, one of the things we talked about initially, Matt, was about tracing the money. And can you give us a little bit of an overview how the family courts work, whether you want to take that under the welfare system or with the parent to parent, in any way that the family court gains money from all these alienation splits to the birth certificate, if you can?
Yeah, and I'll simplify it because it is an extremely complicated nest that they have created, or web that they have created. And I won't go back into, the 1860s when all of this was born, but and the corporatization of our society. But the reality is that the direct mechanism by which these agencies are incentivized, and I say incentivized because that's what it is. There is an incentive. These folks are operating with an agenda. They're operating with purpose, which is contrary to their mission. Their stated mission to the public is the protection of children and families. The agenda states otherwise. And that agenda is to extract as much federal funding that they can. So if you look at states like here in the United States, the state of Texas, when they make a custody award to a parent, whether through CPS or through the family courts, they generally will do what's called a standard possession order. And it's not by happenstance that the standard possession order is the maximum reallocation that can be made to the federal government to maximize the federal funding that's provided back to the state. So, and I think the number is like 21.2%. So you'll see this consistently, case after case after case after case, where the number is static. It's the 21 point whatever percent. So that's indicative of a plan. They're attempting to maximize the federal funding. The federal funding comes through a number of sources. If you've got Typically, you've got what's commonly referred to or colloquially established as the silver bullet tactic, which is where one parent will make a false allegation on the advice of counsel against the other parent. And what that triggers the VAWA money. The Violence Against Women Act in this country is a very powerful lobby. They're very well funded. They have super PACs that are involved, and there are incentives to legislators to bend to their requirements, and then ultimately that money, which has now been given by Congress through various programs, is made available to particularly women and children in the form of housing, direct cash contributions. Catholic Charities is involved in this. There's a whole spider's web of guilty parties. The other aspect is the Judicial Improvement Act, which really took effect around 1994, was when it was fully implemented in the Western countries. You have to sit back and ask yourself, why would the World Bank have engaged in the restructuring of the entire global court system? What's the game? That's always the question. What's the incentive for a banking entity to engage in reengineering of a social program? And that's exactly what happened. The International Monetary Fund, on behalf of the World Bank, they collectively designed the court systems, the family court systems specifically, across the globe. And they involved agencies such as the then new AFCC, which is the club for judges and attorneys. You've got the Bar Association. Everyone that sits on the board is a bar member. This is all part of a cabal that is designed to extract as much resource from their victims as they possibly can. And that can come in the way of a bond. It can come in the way of title to real property and the sale of those assets, the liquidation of retirement incomes, the redistribution of wealth, the collection of child support. There's a whole host of financial triggers and mechanisms and levers that exist for them to monetize these families on a global scale. And the numbers are absolutely staggering, the amount of revenue that's generated. In the U.S. alone, the family court industry represents the best number we've seen is about $250 million annually, which, when you spread that over the globe, it becomes a giant number, a giant mechanism, financial instrument for these wealthy elitists and banking industries to capitalize on.
Now, Matt, going very specifically towards the birth certificate, and you talked about securities and bonds. One of the reasons Bondicide is the term it is because it's possibly breaking one bond, the emotional, to access other bonds. That was one of the reasonings behind it. Can you explain how the Social Security number birth certificate ties in? What happens? Go ahead.
With any business transaction, business is conducted on contracts. So you must have an instrument in order to capitalize or to monetize it. So the family, the only real mechanism to bond is the asset. And the asset in this case is human capital. And like I said, I don't want to get too far back in the 1860s and the addition of all of the constitutional amendments in this country beyond the 10th that were used following Lincoln in the release of slaves. and how that act really wasn't the release of slaves, it was the enslavement of the rest of the population. I don't want to get too deep into that, but the reality is that any contract must have an equity stake, and that equity stake comes in the form of in this case the birth certificate, which is the bond. That is the bond, and I don't know how deeply you want my testimony to go, but for anyone who dabbles in the stock market, if you buy individual stocks in this country or on the exchange, you're led to believe that you own that stock. It's almost like a bearer bond. Those stocks are not owned by you. Those stocks are owned by a clearinghouse that's owned by the industry itself. And you end up with situations where unscrupulous corporate entities will short stocks. We saw this during the pandemic with a company called GameStop. GameStop was over collateralized. People believed they had shares. It was going through BlackRock. They had total control over these assets. Someone's intelligent, more intelligent than I, figured out that they could have individual right and title to their shares, and they filed the form, which is not readily available, by the way, through the clearinghouse. They do their best to hide these documents, these contract documents that give ownership of these financial instruments. And someone figured it out and then spread the news online. And what happened in the GameStop story is still continuing to this day. But what they're discovering is that there were more shares than the capitalized value of the company by a significant margin. So it was over collateralized. So they're selling, in essence, junk bonds and presenting them through BlackRock or Vanguard or State Street as legitimate financial instruments held closely by an intermediary, which opens it up to other corporate mischief makers who can manipulate the market by shorting the stock. And they end up in the supreme position. So if GameStop had in fact gone out of business, the only holder of those notes that would have been recapitalized would have been JP Morgan Chase, because they were the bondholder. So this is a similar scheme that's going on in family courts through the birth certificates, through the bonding of families. And it's been going on for a long time. People have not been aware of it because they like to keep us busy. We're all working. We're all trying to produce a life and happiness and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of sneaky stuff going on in the background that most of us are not aware of. And Marianne, I know you and I talked briefly about some resources. I would welcome the court to reach out to a gentleman by the name of Ian Carroll. Ian is in the state of Washington in the United States, and Ian has done a tremendous amount of work in tracking and documenting these financial relationships to an extreme degree. His scatter chart of ownership is just incredibly deep. It's also important to understand that Vanguard, State Street, BlackRock, their largest shareholders are themselves. They all own one another. And, this goes back to, the banking interests. You've got Bank of America's implicated in all of this. You've got JP Morgan Chase involved in all of this. It's a very deep rabbit hole to go down. But it's not a conspiracy. This is reality. This is the corporatization of government that we experienced in the 1860s that no one knew at that time. They were sold this beautiful concept that we were going to free the slaves in this country, and that was going to give everyone the right to freedom, when in fact what happened was it just it took one segment of slavery and applied it to all. So we are in involuntary slavitude at this point, or in involuntary servitude by way of that birth certificate and those bonds. We have a responsibility to our financial keepers to keep producing instruments that they can monetize.
So to me, it sounds like we are, would it fair to say that we are livestock, that human resources, I mean, we have a department of human resources in many of the countries. Is that fair to say that
Yes.
that's what?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know me, Marianne, I'm not typically a conspiracy. I don't like to get too far down these rabbit holes, but the more that Bill and I work with families on this, there's really no other explanation. And all of the data continues to point back to these agencies and these corporations as the responsible parties.
Can I ask another question? And I know I was going to ask this of Dr. Dubree to Bill, but he's not here anymore. Maybe next time. In your experience and with your knowledge with as behavioral psychology, is there an incentivized beyond they would monetarily incentivize this to create a certain effect? What do they get? What's churned out of all this in terms of the what happens to the children and the parents? What do you see? Are they sorry, are they
I'm sorry.
traumatized? Are they devastated? Are they what's the emotional consequence to parents
Oh,
and children?
it wrecks families and children. The majority of our parents have gone through bankruptcy. They've been financially devastated. Um, Bill is famous for saying, there's only really one cause of death in human populations, and those are the consequences of stress. So this is perpetual stress. Like I said earlier, the majority of our families, the 3,000 we've come into contact in the last 2 years, they're on a treadmill in these courts for 5+ years on average. That's an average. That's a sad number. Now, so that means that those protected parents were engaged in a fight or flight mentality, producing huge amounts of stress for an extended period of time. We see health issues with them. We see massive health changes in the children. We see cancers developing. We see more colds, more sicknesses, more flus. We see more loss of time in school, whatever your feelings are about that. But, this is a huge drain on society. The cost is almost immeasurable. There again, it's the fox watching the hen house. Bill and I have talked about, maybe doing some conversations or having some conversations with corporate leaders in this country to explain the cost of nonconformance in circumstances where an employee is going through a divorce. We know the numbers. We know what effect that has on performance, careers, the bottom line revenues of the company. We can articulate all of that with solid data. But there again, these corporate entities are the very ones who establish the process by which to monetize the family. So they're feeding from both sides of the plate. I don't know that they really care. It's not a siloed business. These are all very intricate, very closely knitted organizations that all tie back into the banking system. So they're going to win no matter what. These children, though, and we as humans are, as you described it, livestock or chattel. We are monetized for purposes that none of us will ever understand. I've often asked that question, what would it be like to wake up in the morning and know that you needed to harm society as a whole in order to, protect your own, generational wealth or your own sense of purpose in life? I don't understand it. I don't get it. It makes no sense to me at all.
The last question I just wanted to ask, if you could, when we saw in parallel to when we saw the vaccine rollouts, we know that there was incentivized motivation from the bankers to make money, but that we saw that there was a higher incentive and narrative playing out to put stuff into people's arms, basically, into their bodies. is it possible that there is a desired effect at a very high level towards harming, causing this trauma and feeding off the trauma?
Oh, absolutely. There's, the medical industry survives on keeping people sick. And, I forget the year. I think it was under the Reagan administration when the tort claims against these drug manufacturers was ended. You can't bring a tort claim against a drug manufacturer for harm. That had a ripple effect on every person in this country. Oh, thank you. 1986. What this allowed is it allowed unfettered, irresponsible behavior on the pharmaceutical industry to try things out. Remember in this world, we used to, I have a cousin. I have a little bit of fame in my family. I was, my cousin, my third cousin is known as the tallest man to have ever lived. His name was Robert Pershing Wadlow, and he was 8 feet, 11 and 3/4 inches tall when he died. Um, Robert suffered from an overactive pituitary gland. And when my uncle, Harold, his father, took him to the doctor at age 4 with concerns over his rapid weight gain, the doctor informed him that this hyperactive pituitary was a problem. The only solution they had at that time was a lobotomy. That was the level of our medical understanding at that point. And so they discussed the risks versus the rewards, and they elected not to perform the surgery. And Robert became, he was known as the gentle giant. He was a wonderful, wonderful human being. He didn't live nearly long enough. He only lived to the age of 21, but he made a huge impact on the Midwest, on the shoe industry, on the circus industry. There were a whole number of people across the globe who were positively impacted by him. Had he been, had the medical industry been incentivized to make uh, that procedure mandatory, he wouldn't have been with us. He would have died, or he would have died alone in some kind of mental institution, because we know that those lobotomies were not always successful.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. It's it's a reflective story on where we're at today. And as far as these vaccines are concerned, wow, what better way to ensure the shareholder value than to push out, poison water, and ensuring, one, that you sell your product, and two, that the people that are partaking through mandate that product are getting sicker, which then requires they come back to you for more. They're like the crack dealer on the corner.
Wouldn't that make sense about a best interest of a child, of a continuing drawing off of from the system of the parents in the perpetual trauma and the children needing psychological assessments?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm
Yep.
going
Go ahead. That's exactly what's happening. I'm sorry.
So I would say, I guess what we can do is, I think Bill has said before, Dr. Dubry, that he sees this as a kind of a genocide going on. Would you agree to that?
I would. You can see it. If you look at, Bill compares everything to an evolutionary standard. And if you compare where we're at today to the evolutionary standard that was necessary at various points of time in our history as a human species to our survival, this is a plan. This is a plan to derail, whether it's the reduction of population. Who knows? I don't know what the agenda. I tend to think in simple terms, since we've corporatized everything, that this is all about the money. It's all about capitalizing on human capital, and monetizing the family structure to unimaginable levels. But yeah, from an evolutionary standpoint, evolution would never have allowed this to occur, because it would not have helped support the ongoing growth and perpetuation of our species. to have families ripped apart, to destroy the family structure to such an extent that you have children who no longer live near their parents when they get old. We're shipping our children out to daycare. So even the most precious and important um, attachments that you have in your life are stripped away from you um, through in large part the system designed to tax parents into work. That's what it's designed to do.
Last question thank you, Matt, for the time. Last question, if you could. When these separations occur, these custody switches, you mentioned about how there's an alienation factor where the children become they walk away from their parents. They're either angry at them or they're made to be cruel to them. When the society is kind of under the misnomer possibly that when the children turn 18 they'll just go back to their parents, the parents they're alienated from. Is that the case, or is this a permanent separation desired?
Well, it is permanent in many ways, because what happens is unconstrained behavior becomes practiced, and behavior becomes part of your social inventory. So you can't expect to allow a child to live in a maladaptive environment that's training them to be maladaptive to turn out very well. Now, can you? And that's exactly what's happening. We've got. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Finish.
The reason it's so effective is the allied parent, the bad parent, if you will, is incentivized by the system to act badly. Their goal is to fracture the attachment system of the child and the protective parent, because it feeds in that allied parent something that's missing, whether it was life experience, their childhood, who knows? There's probably a number of factors that play into that. They treat the child, because this is what their attorneys have told them, they treat the child like property. The child is then put into a training camp whereby there is one form of training, and that is the training of maladaptive behaviors towards the other parent. So what you have is a scenario whereby the alienating parent, the allied parent, is training the child to reject the other parent to feed the need within the allied parent. The child is the proxy. The child, in every case of abuse that we see, psychological child abuse, physical child abuse, there is no rejection of children of one parental figure, one attachment figure in their lives other than parental alienation. And you can see this in videos that have been secured of children who have endured, almost inhumane levels of abuse, where CPS gets involved and they're recovering these children. They've got bruises all over them. They're dirty. They're unkempt. They're living in feces infested home environments and all kinds of things. What is it those children say as they're being stripped away from their families? They immediately run to their abuser, cling to their leg, and scream and cry that they don't want to be taken from their families. You never see this in cases of parental alienation. The child is rejecting the other parent.
Is it fair to say, Matt, I'm just trying to drawing it in, is that when you talk about the abusive other parent, could we see that also in terms of the state and the foster or placement where the child is sent and then told that the parent they're alien from is a very terrible parent? Do we see a parallel there too?
Well, absolutely. And we've actually seen it in practice. We've had a number of parents over the years who have been involved in CPS cases. We had one parent in Missouri who was given by statute her time with the children Then, mind you, there were no abuse allegations. This was not a physical abuse situation. This is under the nebulous term failure to protect, basically blame shifting. She was told that when she would go through her supervised visitations with her child, she was not allowed to embrace the child. She was not allowed to talk about futures with the child. I'll see you next time. She was not allowed to make verbal expressions of love and affection towards the child. None of that. So all of that, if you understand behaviorism and learning theory, is very easily explained. They are training these children to reject. And the allied parent does it on the behest of their attorneys. They do it to mask their own trauma and their own control of life. And then you've got those within CPS, these so-called social workers who have been trained in manipulating the attachment system as well. And all of this equates to one thing: the victimization of children, period. There's no other way around it. You could try to blame the parent, you could try to do this, you could try to do that, and rationalize it by circumstance, but you can't escape the fact. And the fact is, the entire system is dedicated to blaming the child and abusing the child and monetizing the child.
Thank you, Matt. I think what I'm going to do is kind of wrap up a little bit. Matt has really given a fluid testimony about how it's all incentivized in the monetary sense in the family court. I'm wondering, Ananda and Simone, if you would be agreeable if I got one or two of the witnesses to speak, just to, since they're here and they've taken time out. Are you okay with that? Because I know your expert testimony. Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
No. Okay, I just would like to add a few comments. I'm not sure we're going to testify in this hearing today. So we agree. This is good stuff. This needs to come forwards. Just that with Barnevarnet in Norway, it's a new model. There is no family. It doesn't exist. The child belongs to the state, and any excuse is given. So people receive viewers, visitors who will check the family. And if the bread is cut too thick, that is the reason, and the child is taken, because the child belongs to the state, not to the parents. So that is the model. A financial model by the Wallenberg family, which is Bilderberg. World Economic Forum is secondary. So they're a banking family, big banking family, Illuminati banking family, working with the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Astors, the usual so-called owners. I completely understand the system. I've studied it the whole of my life, the psychology, the magic, the harnessing of the emotions. And behavioral psychology. So a lot of this is also based on Dr. Richard Skinner's work, who was also coming from an elite pedigree family. So he's disguised it in behavioral psychology. With the kill switch, with kill chain, I just have to correct you there. It's not a human that presses that. It's AI that presses that with Lavender and with Titan. Very good overview with bond liquidization, the amount of money that is made globally when it is 250 million annually in the US. The IMF, redesigning the court system, excellent point. And of course, Chase Manhattan, which is Rockefellers, which have been behind so many things of keeping people down, redoing the education system, and also the medicine system and perpetual suffering that way too. The name of the game there is suffering, because that's samsara, the wheel of suffering. They don't have to do very much. They can use that wheel if you understand the Buddhistic notion of samsara. Yeah.
I wanted just to give a little insert here for about the money, as Matthew spoke about the 250 million per year in the US, which is fantastic to have those kind of numbers to see also in what kind of terms we're speaking here. In Norway, it is $3 billion per year.
No, euros.
Euros per year that is going into the system. I just wanted to insert that here. Thanks.
Wow, that's incredible. Judge Howard, did you want to respond, Matt? Or I mean, I think or
No, I
was there
think their
anything
points
to-
are all well taken.
Yeah.
I think it just reinforces that this is a banking problem. As
Yes.
with many social problems are that, you know, laid at the feet of the banking industry. So, you know, very good job.
That's right. That's
No,
it.
and I think
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
what we see with Barnevarnet is, yeah, that they just literally come in and just take it.
Yeah.
State owns.
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't
Yes.
even play. They don't even play
No.
game. Judge Howard, you had your hand raised. Was there a question you wanted to ask? You're muted.
More comments. So, when I said earlier, when you go back to the tape, I said there is one gentleman in Ottawa who I know personally who's taking on the TD Bank, and he has found when he did his audit that what they have done with his trust and his mortgage and all the securitization and re-securitization is now at 500 million. That's one individual. You talk of court cases. Every court number goes into the trust. So the $250 million is chicken feed. We're talking trillions.
Yeah.
Okay? So anyways, I rest, I yield.
I agree with you, Howard, because I think from what I understand from Sean at Mortgage Audits, cases are bundled, and they're bundled, and then they add two more zeros and two more zeros, and it's like the cases are mortgages pretty much, and this is what's happening. Rita, you had your hand up. Did you want to?
Yes, thank you. No, I was just going to mention when you look at the amount of money, it's interesting with the 3 billion euros per year out of Norway, and you compare, you know, what the US, like you mentioned, 250 million per year in the US. Now, what's your perspective on smaller countries? Because when you look at the system of the money system into the childcare system of profiting, when you look at countries like, say, Italy, Spain, Portugal, you look at small countries that don't have an energy base, like Norway's rich. Norway is fueled off of their oil and gas, and they're a state-funded oil and gas economy. And that's always been the case with them. So when you get countries that don't have that, let's just pick Portugal's poor. We know that. Spain's not as rich. So countries like this, do you think when you look at what they would make off of this type of scheme, I can't see it being big money because their industries aren't fed by big money. You know, it's like saying what feeds the United States or the state of Texas. The state of Texas is wealthy. It's rich. They've got oil and gas. Is there a pattern with rich economies that fall under the system of making money off of the financial system, off of the human trading schemes that we're seeing today? Is there a pattern in different countries in terms of their wealth and their financial systems that their revenue they make off of that wealth?
One of the things that I saw note is the United Nations itself, I'm going to suggest, is actually having the countries, and you make a good point, as per the depth of the amount of wealth and the degree of their sunk into the crime. The United Nations has got, because that's pretty much everybody or representative from each corporate state, right? National corporation nation. It is part of the whole giant feeding of the world organization that the countries have a certain amount of custody splits, whether it be through family court, and we certainly see it in child welfare cases. I think it's coming from up there, but I do wonder what Matt or Ananda or Simone say about regard to the less wealthy countries, because that's a very good point to understand how this machine goes.
Yeah, for sure.
My take on it is that energy drives conflict.
What's that?
Conflict and the need energy drives conflict. So as an industry, as a country, gets into the industrial revolution, whatever time period that is, the need for energy increases. And so you could make an argument that, at the root of this, yeah, it could very well be the energy requirements of that society in order to develop the capital necessary to feed that need. And that energy can be in the form of, raw fossil fuels, technologies, or food sources. They're all sources of energy. They're all capitalized. They're all on, various financial balance sheets. They're all industries unto themselves, and they all feed from that. You need an army to protect your nation's interest in its energy consumption. If you look at the footprint of the United States and all that we're doing in the Middle East, this is all revolved around energy. The perpetual wars to feed our society. And that raises an interesting yet very unpopular opinion. And I'd just like to say what my opinion on this is. And Marianne and I have talked about it in the past. If you really, where the rubber meets the road on all of this, the people ultimately have the power to reverse this. It's almost as if we are paying for our own lynching. If you look at the funding of BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street and others, over 30% of their net revenues are derived from us. We are paying for our own lynching. We're feeding a beast that is destroying our lives. So what Bill states is the really, as we see it, the only way out of this is to withdraw consent. It's not popular to think that we have to pull our money out of our retirement accounts in order for us to do our part for society, but that may be what it comes down to, is we need to pull our money out of the system because the system itself relies upon that resource to then meter out their form of abuse upon us.
You make a good point. On that point that you just pointed out, you see the European Union the EU Labor Union of Longshoremen, they've protested. In fact, they had a meeting yesterday. They said they're going to halt all port operations. That's a big economic loss because you halt a port, you just halted millions of dollars in one day. They actually, the Italian labor union in Genoa said to their government, to Meloni, if you do not stop bioweapons, that Italy's the third shipper of weapons to the Gaza war. They made it clear to their government, if you don't stop shipping weapons of destruction to kill children in the Gaza, we will stop our port operations. We're not going to work. And this is across the EU. So that's profound. That's labor now is getting involved. Labor at this level is saying to their government, and I hope the United States does the same. I hope Canada does the same. I just would love to see a world collaboration of labor unions to shut down all their ports, to stop the Ukraine war, to stop the Gaza war. And you just see how quick this just might stop. Because believe me, when you put people, and I agree, it's going to take people to stop the atrocities that we see today. And if you rely on government to stop them, you're disillusioned because the only governments have a machine. The wars are a big, big money-making machine. In fact, it's not about peace. It's not about democracy. And I even question if it's even about oil. I mean, it is. I agree with you. It's said about oil, but there's a bigger picture here. And the bigger picture to me, what I'm seeing is technology is fueling the war machine because Palantir uses AI to kill people and target children in homes. Now they got robots. Robots are now crossing the lines of warfare. You don't have humans anymore with shotguns. Ukraine has bought robots from China to put them in the war front against Russia. You've got automation now approved by the maritime industry, which they just announced they want to do this. They want to automize robots as humanoids. So now you got humanoids that are going to be communicating. Humanoids take the place of manufactured workers at shipbuilding yards in the maritime industry, airports. You're going to see airports. Robots are going to build our planes. Robots build our vessels. Robots are going to take food off of our ships. That's already happening. For Pete's sake, the world thinks, oh, this is the future. It is happening today. In fact, it's happening so quick that the money of BlackRock, Vanguard, they are behind the automation of the world. They are behind AI, automation, digital, humanoids, robots. So they're linked, and they're linked to the making the cash. I think the children, what they're doing to children is a byproduct of what they're doing to all of human society. There is a game here called destruction. That's what I think.
I just wanted to quickly answer to also say something to you or to Judge Rita and with Matthew also. There is a country that can be compared, for example, to from the size and the population size to Norway, which is in Europe, it's Slovakia. And the money that is being poured into Slovakia and into the child welfare system in Slovakia is about $99 million euros per year, in opposite to $3 billion per year, euros per year in Norway. So you see already where it is, because Slovakia is also not the richest country in Europe. So
bandwidth.
If they have a child welfare system where they actually come and then they act off the state towards, do they really want the problem, solving the problem in the family, or do they just want to make money out of that situation? Because those states, there are some states that want still the solution of, or countries that want the solution happening in the family, so the child stays in the family, and because they also can't afford it as a state to take care of all these children? Or is it like the wealthier countries who can afford to just take the child out and traffic the child because of all the investors coming in and all the money that is coming from the Norwegian government? So I think one can see there is certainly a difference between a wealthier state and a not as wealthy state. I think there is certainly a country. That is certainly the case. And a very good point what Matthew to get on is then about the sovereignty, that we as the people have to take our life into our own hands. We just cannot sit here and say, oh yeah, we want to have children, social security and children money and being funded by the state. And then on the other hand, when the state comes in and takes away the children, are crying and saying that's all the country's fault. So we have to kind of like take our sovereignty in our own hands with healthcare, with in communities, make sovereign communities who are actually supportive of that model.
As a background support instead, and God as one's actual health care. That's what I've been operating at since the age of 15, not taking any insurance whatsoever. I'm now 55, but and we haven't been taking anything from the system, because we've known from the get-go that the system is corrupt, and if you give to it, you subscribe to it, and therefore they can govern you. My mum was aware of this, so she had me not sign anything with work, because once you sign, you're in. And eventually, when I got a large piece of land in Norway, wanted to create an independent sovereign community there, a star village, we called it, in the late 90s. I decided to sign into the system, and it's taken me decades to get out of it. So it's a vicious system. You have to create a private membership association for your child before 18, so that they operate through an association, that they don't sign into the slavery work machine, because that signature can set one up for life.
It's
if I may, Marianne, I think Ananda and her partner are
Howard's point
very
was
right.
Very
Bang
good.
on, eh? Bang
Talking
on.
about much larger figures.
bang on
I-
about, go ahead. Yeah, I was going to chime
Yeah.
in.
I would just want to say that if, we have an example of the effect of the system overall on a society in Argentina. If you look at Argentina, the moment that they moved their financial system, they up until the 1950s, the mid 1950s, they were the largest, most influential, economically sound country in the world. And then they adopted a script type currency, similar to the United States. And that's when all the trouble began. If you look at what Malay is doing in Argentina, you can see it's a litmus test for where the direction that the rest of society has to move. Because, I think that on some level, well, I don't think that would happen in the United States. Obviously, if we had a Malay here in the United States, he would be summarily shot, a la Charlie Kirk and everyone else, right? But I think that there are lessons to be learned there on how a nation can go from, the most influential, uh, highest quality of living globally to an absolute third world dumping ground, and then now rising from the ashes like a phoenix, for nothing more than economic policies.
Yeah, that is so true. It's an amazing country because I remember when I was there. I mean, in the sense where it is, I think now, but I remember when I went to Argentina, their banks shut down and they weren't able to even take money out of their banks because it just crashed. It's when they had their big economic crash. So that was interesting how no one could take money out. And I was shocked. I said, oh my gosh, the system just, I experienced that when I was there visiting family in Argentina. But yeah, no, going back to what you were saying about going back to the state control and Judge Ananda, you said being detached from that system and not buying into it and not participating in that social system. I remember when my mom had mental illness and I was her caregiver for about 15 years of her life. So was my dad. I remember being power of attorney and representative for her because she couldn't think for herself when they institutionalized her. And I remember I had to go to a point where I had to almost sue the health system in BC because they refused me to take her out of a really bad institution called Riverview, which many know Riverview shut down as a result of bad practices. It's non-existent today. But I remember when I had to go up against them, I threatened them and I said, you know what? I literally went and I said, I'm her representative legally. And I said, my mom cannot be here because these conditions are horrid. And I also managed to get her out. And I got her out and I got her back home. And then she got her care. But I mean, there were times where I remember the system pretty well didn't care. The system used her as a pawn to basically stay in the institution. So I fought that system and I fought what they tried to do in controlling her, even the state. At one point, the state wanted to arrest her. And they use arrests because under mental health, they will use the state to come to your house if they're suicidal. If someone is suicidal, they have mental illness or a threat to themselves, they're a threat to their family, they will come and the police will handcuff them and they will take them to the ward of psychiatric ward to assess them. That happened to my mom. I was right there and I had to get her out. So when I look at those situations, I lived that path. I saw the legalities that I had to fight, but I had to fight for her because she couldn't fight for herself with mental illness. And there you go. That's that story. It's a really true story. And I see how they get control. And
Just to get on, I wanted to just
sorry.
put onto the record, Howard, with the Govinda case. Can you give those papers to the tribunal? It's important. Also, I know Judge Sensei Phil has a way to find out that hidden trust value of people, because it's hidden so well from everybody. That knowledge needs to be given to everybody so people can see their trade
If I
value
may,
in their strawman.
yeah,
Yes.
if I may, Judge Ananda, I will get you everything. I'll get it to Judge Alfred to send out on Govinda because it's a game changer. Babylon has come down because of what he's done, what he's perfected. In front of me is a document, someone else who right now, you see, we're so naive in terms of working the system. So I'll be very brief. This is all about it's called the Court Registry Investment System. None of you know it exists. But when they take money off your trust, that's where it's going. It helps the retirements of judges, et cetera, et cetera. It's in the trillions of dollars. In my life right now, I know a number of people going up. They're doing the audits on their court numbers and finding out how much has been taken, where it's gone, where the investments are. And anyone complicit now with that scheme will be prosecuted via Govindas. And I'll give you one further thing that's happening in Michigan right now. There's an individual that Marianne has heard about. His name is James Tyre. He's been 5 years. It began 5 years ago when he had an exemption for masks. He was tasered, brought to the ground, handcuffed, and jailed. Now 19 individuals have been leaned all the way up to governor. It's been perfected. It's over $4 billion. And as of this week, he went to Chase Manhattan to say, here's the law. And now you're going to enforce those liens and shut down their accounts. That's where it's at, all the way up to politicians. So this
When
stuff.
it succeeds, that's great, but it hasn't happened yet.
No, I'm just saying. So it's to that level. But in terms of the courts and in terms of this one gentleman in Ottawa, I have two other people very close to me who are at this level. There's only about 5 people in Canada at the level of these 3 people I know and I'm working with. And so here's the thing. So here's one of the scenarios that may happen very shortly. What most of us don't know is when you sign your name, you put a number to it, you've actually created money. So everyone here who has taken out a mortgage has signed a promissory note. What you created the money, not the bank. There's the flip. And so this gentleman against the TD Bank, that's what he's proving. And do you know who's going to actually enforce it? The Department of Treasury. That's the and so it's not going to be enforced via Canada. It's being enforced via the Department of Treasury because everything goes through the Federal Reserve. In the chat, I mentioned the Depository Trust Corporation. All birth certificates are held there. So there's some major things happening right now. So I will sit down.
Can we have Judge Marianne continue?
Yes.
And it sounds good. Let's see it happening, but I'd like to hear the rest of Marianne's case, please.
I was going to suggest, since it is getting to be later, I know Matt has a question. I was going to suggest, I wanted to, in the very least, have one witness give something, even if it's just about 10 minutes. I can only go till about 5:15 this time in the next 20 minutes. But I have 2 witnesses in particular I'm thinking of, which is Chris Taylor or Lindsay Slack, to go after Matt's got a question and comment. If that's okay, just to have them give a little bit of testimony, and then we resume just for about 12 minutes. Are we okay with that? Just to start hearing the actual evidence. Thank you. Okay. Matt, you had your hand up. And we can't hear you. Matt? Okay. Can I ask, Lindsay, are you around? Are you able to unmute? There you are.
I'm here.
Welcome, Lindsay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Are you able to get the camera?
It makes it harder to hear the video, but I'll do it for a moment.
Just at the very beginning so people can see it.
Yeah.
So welcome, Lindsay. Lindsay, can you affirm your full name? Can you give your,
My name is Lindsay Ruth Slack.
and Lindsay, are you going to tell the truth, the whole truth?
There's a
affirm?
delay for me because of the video.
Okay.
I affirm, yes.
Okay, Lindsay,
Okay,
you have.
I'm going to
how many-
disappear off the video.
It's easier. How many children do you have, Lindsay?
I have 3 offspring. I have Madeline, Aubrey, and Darian. They're 18, 10, and 8.
When's the last time you saw your children, Lindsay?
I've seen them. I saw my daughter briefly. I ran into her in June, and she ran away from me. It was just a very short encounter. There's been a couple other times in the last 3 years, but but besides those, it's been November 16th, 2022.
So your kids, I understand in the background that you had received, can you tell a little bit about what happened one day when you received a notification that the Child Protection Services in your area was going to come in for a visit at your home?
Oh, they actually had stopped by a couple of times, just unannounced. They just came by. I refused talking to them once I realized who they were, because I felt like I had the right to do so. And then the police had come by before the final day as well. And I believed it was within my rights to refuse talking with them. So I did that to the best of my ability. There were times they were able to find us when we were off guard. But for the most part, I refused that, or I didn't open the door to them, or I wasn't there. So there were a handful of times.
Was there one time in particular, Lindsay, when they came into the house and you had filmed them and do you want to tell what happened when they came in?
On November 16th, 2022, they came to the door around noon, knocking on the door. And I believe it was the police that announced their presence. I was very scared and shaking, and brought the kids upstairs with me. We went online and got on the phone talking with people like my mom and other community members for support, at least observation of what was happening. And I also called 911 because there were armed people that were threatening to come into my house.
Police. What happened when they came in, Lindsay? Did they
Police.
Did they touch you? What happened?
They obtained a key from my landlady, and actually it was housing. So they were able to go there, get a key, and break in because I had a basketball net wedged in the doorway, because I was feeling threatened and I didn't want them in the home. When they did come in, they broke through that barrier, and I was in my daughter's bedroom with her and my 2 boys who were younger than her. And I told them to go hide. And I went downstairs with my new laptop. It's probably a week old, and managed to get it on video, fumbled around. I was very, very scared, and started filming them on the stairs. We were living in a split level home. So there were 3 sets of half stairs. So I had to go down one half set to get to the second half set, and that they were on the lowest level. which is where the living room was. I stood on the stairs and filmed them, and it didn't last very long because they need to stop filming and asked me to come closer. That I think they told me at the time that I was obstructing an investigation. I'm not sure if they told me that after or at the time. It was pretty nerve-wracking for me. But I did go a little bit closer to them. At the point I got a little bit closer, they grabbed me. They took the laptop and put it down on a nearby table and just kind of brought me into the group of them. And I freaked out because I had a lot of people on me. Yeah, a few people. Yeah.
Did the police manhandle you? Did they put their arms on you? Did they?
Oh, they were all over me. Yeah. And yeah, so there was some struggle because I do have some trauma-like symptoms, and they knew beforehand that I was not okay with being physically touched like that. That was, yeah, that I would have a bit of a trauma response from being manhandled. So they eventually got some handcuffs on me and told me to stop freaking out because it was going to scare my kids and it would be easier if I stopped. And yeah, they put me in handcuffs and eventually led me out the door, which was just a few steps away. They had me stay in the front doorway for a while before they let me out, though. I'm not sure if they were waiting for the correct vehicle to show up. I'm not sure why they held, yeah, but I was there for a bit and then they brought me out. My mom was outside. She was forbidden to come anywhere close to the house, and they didn't like that she was filming from outside. My mom's partner was there as well at the time. And then those were the only two people there at the time. Afterwards, some other people showed up. But yeah, they brought me part way, and then they showed me a piece of paper. I don't remember if it was completely if it was before or after that they said I was arrested. But they showed me a piece of paper which I couldn't even read at the time because of my stress level. And it had no signature. It was just a typed out piece of paper. Later, I was able to see that piece of paper, and it's just basically stating that it was an investigative warrant. So they believed that they had the right to come in and do whatever they wanted. After they took me out to the police van, I was told that the kids were in there for a good long time after that. My mom attempted to record it all, but her battery, I think, ran out because of how long they were in there. So maybe they were in there for about a good hour is what they estimated. Everybody was stressed out. So, and then when they came out, they must have been instructed to not talk to anybody because of the way that they acted. But of course, this is secondhand information. My mom was there. My mom's partner, my partner at the time had made it there, and also a friend and her daughter. And so the kids mostly walked past trusted people that they knew, with the CPS workers. Who brought them to the headquarters. And
So Lindsay, just
yeah,
background so I can clarify for everybody what precipitated this for them to come into your home and to do all this. I understand. Was it a phone call? Did somebody make a phone call to them? Or was it?
my sister had made some complaints. My sister has been adamant to other family members that she hasn't called, but she did go online and ask for support. And then a report was made based on what she said. And then she also had a friend call. Also, the boys have a different father than Madeline does. The boy's father was also, I think, making some calls or making some complaints. And he actually called the police at one point and found out where we lived when we were under threat from him. And the police told him where we lived. So
this is based on a phone call from your sister and maybe a phone call from just angry other, like just people in your community or family who are snitching, it sounds.
Yes, absolutely.
So where are the children right now? If your sister called this in as a, well, wait, where are they right now?
They were taken to headquarters, and then they were given, they got some takeout food at a place that they knew, a Lebanese place that they liked. And then they were taken to my sister's house, who was actually out of the country. She was in the United States visiting, I think she was visiting friends at the time. So she was out of the country, and the kids were taken to a friend of hers at her house that they had met briefly, maybe twice, instead of my partner or my mom or my mom's partner or my friend, who were all outside, and the kids knew like very well.
What I'm having trouble understanding is what reason could they possibly have to take the children? It's not making any sense to me.
Yeah, well, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
They don't have, well, they don't, from what I'm gathering, they don't have one. From what I gather, that they came in, and this is close to the Norway model. They got a tip. They saw a situation. They brought police in. When you didn't sort of just let them come right in, they then arrested you. And then they took the children anyway, because they and based on nothing that I understand.
Well, yeah. Maybe I'll bring up at this point. So at the time, my kids were 15. 15, goodness gracious, 15, 7, and 5. It's been too long. Now, I signed for a birth certificate on November 16th, 2015, when my son was born in July, and I really didn't want to do that. But I was under a lot of pressure and didn't know how to do anything differently. So I signed for a birth certificate. I purposely did not check the check mark for a SIN, for a social insurance number. But one was made anyway and sent to me. But it was November 16th, 2015, when I signed that birth certificate, and November 16th, 2022, exactly 7 years to the day, is when they came in and came into the house. So I believe that may have something to do with it, because I did not maybe claim things a certain way.
Yeah,
I think that may be a big part of it.
Now, Matt might have a comment on that. Is that isn't it 7 years that if there's no claim on loss at sea? So if 7 years since you had your son and no birth certificate?
I do believe it's that. I don't know if Matt is here, but I do believe it's that. I've looked into a lot of these things myself.
So Lindsay,
it's a growth. 7 years is a growth cycle. So all atoms of the body are replaced. The iris atoms 7 years. So it's a natural law. It's also a Saturn quarter, which is measured by some people, having effective cycles. Like a Saturn return is a very significant change in one's life. So she thinks, Lindsay, you think that by not checking the SIN, they have found you committing a sin that you are a little bit aware, and therefore they use that as the purpose to snatch. Did I understand that correct?
It could be that. I don't know for sure, but I was just kind of thinking of that recently. But I mean, there were other things that they stated as concerns, like we didn't have the COVID shots. We didn't. We sought alternative healthcare. We didn't like going to doctors. We homeschooled. We were quite alternative and working to move to the country outside of the system. So things that were very different than my government working sister. My sister, the last I spoke to her about it, she was doing top secret work for the government. So I do not know what she's doing now. It's not listed anymore, but she's very much on the inside of this.
Did they give who did they give your children to? Do you want to tell just what happened with the court?
Yeah, so they went to my sister's house immediately, and then my sister came back from her trip, and I think she was upset about it because she hadn't even unpacked her suitcase yet. But they went to my sister's house. It was never considered that they could go with mom or go with my partner or go with anybody else that the kids knew. They just immediately gave them to my sister. Sorry, I lost your question.
Oh, I was trying to understand. I understand that the police, did the police come and lay criminal charges on you?
There were, let me see. So for the obstruction and failing to show up for court the day after I got out of jail. So I was jailed. I went to the police station and I refused to speak. Actually, that's what I refused. I didn't say anything for a few days. But I was jailed actually for 6 days. I was in custody for 6 days in isolation. So they took me, they attempted to make me speak in different ways, had a lawyer on the phone, wanted to take my height and my fingerprints and all of those things, of which I was uncooperative actually. At one point, one of the police officers had his hand around my neck and realized that it didn't look very good for that to be happening. So he decided to stop and not pursue doing things against my will. So they decided just because they could that they'd put me in prison because they were just kind of, the supervisor was allowed to do that if he wanted to. So he just decided to because he was just kind of upset. So they sent me over to Burnside, which is a medium security prison. And I was doing common law in court, which is a little trickier to do from jail. And I was not speaking with lawyers. I was speaking with a friend who does common law, and doing my best to navigate through common law while I was in a very stressful situation and without resources around me. And all the time it was 2022. So I was kind of unsure whether they were going to stick me with a needle, or I wasn't even wanting to test for any illnesses at the time. So for me, those were things I didn't want. So it was added stress. A lot of people wanted to speak with me, and I decided to actually fast the entire time I was in jail. So I fasted from water for like 3.5 days, and then realized I probably needed to drink the water. And then otherwise I probably wouldn't have done so well, but I didn't eat any food the whole time I was in there, for that being like 7 days. And so when I came back from jail, I finally was let out.
Sorry, a bit of a bad connection.
But I signed it carefully. And can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I signed something in such a way that it ought not to have held in court, but they used it anyway. And I was let out, and yeah, anyway, I was in such a state I was in such a state that I fell asleep right away. And I remember waking up and not recognizing anybody's faces because of the trauma. Also, the lack of food and just the stress of the whole situation was extreme. And I had court the next day. What they did is they scheduled 2 courts at the exact same time. They scheduled a family court and they scheduled criminal court at 9:30 a.m. on the 23rd of November. So I was let out on the 22nd of November, 2022. And on November 23rd, 9 a.m., there were 2 court appearances that they expected me to make in 2 different courthouses across town at the exact same time. So I was in a panic the next day because I knew that it was on a paper somewhere. It was in my documents somewhere, and I was looking for it. And I remember finding one, and it wasn't what I thought it was. And then I realized that there were 2. And so had I made one, I still would have been in some way at fault for not appearing at the other. Or my capacity to be able to do what I needed to do before court the next day was severely reduced because of my experience. And yeah, so.
I just want to interject that I might have a little scene here that I may have to leave a bit. I'm wondering if we could pick up Lindsay's testimony in a week, because I don't want to cut this off short. And I think that she has a lot to say when it comes to the exact details. And I also have a video to play that, thank you to Chris, that shows an assault by a police right in the courtroom where they grabbed Lindsay. Lindsay's probably 118 pounds, and you have all of these swarming because she refused to walk into a family court. And you will actually speak with would that be go ahead.
Yes, if I could, I know that a number of parties, including presiding judges Ananda Bosman, an expert, have indicated they have to leave within 10 minutes. So that my suggestion would be that we adjourn, that we declare testimony terminated at this time, and that we adjourn until next Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Now, that would be Sunday, October 5th. Is everybody able to make it for Sunday, October 5th? Is that possible for everybody?
Good. That works, I think, Alfred. We can resume next week. Thank you.
I'm not able to make it next week. I have my daughter next weekend.
Yeah. So that can the tribunal adjourn now and resume next Sunday, October 5th at 10 a.m. at 11 a.m. Pacific time? Is that acceptable?
Yes, and to witnesses that have indicated an issue, I can talk to you about making a statement outside of that or afterwards, so not to be a problem. That works. Thank you.
Okay. I certainly want to thank all tribunal judges, all witnesses, our expert, and we will be sending out a video of this. If tribunal judges or witnesses have written testimony that they want to submit for the record or other memoranda, please submit them to peace@peaceandspace.org.
I'm going to have to get Marianne to help me. I have dysgraphia.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And And if not, let us know if you have any questions. And we want to thank you very much for your participation and your cooperation with the tribunal at this time. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
An honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.